Hi, in this video I'm going to be taking a look at making some wargaming terrain out of various plastic storage containers, and I've got an assortment of such containers here. I've got some basic food containers, sort of lunchbox style things I got from a pound shop. I've got a couple of larger cereal containers. I've got two of these for £5 at a bargain supermarket. Beyond food containers, I've also got these some chocolate bits, which are the sort I really shouldn't buy, because when I buy a bucket of these I end up stuffing my face with chocolate all day. And also I have got several different sizes of CD or DVD containers, and I've also got that I will be adding a few of these dummy CCTV cameras, and I'll be using these to add domes to the various structures wherever I want. I'm starting simply with the round container, and here I have cut off the lip that went around the top and was used to fix the lid on so that it sits flat on the floor. And then I have sanded the sides and the base, which is now going to form the roof. And the sides, that's been done just so I've got a rougher surface that I'm hoping paint will stick to better. And on the roof, as well as making the surface easier for things to stick to, it also gets rid of all of the markings that were on there. Now, I could now just paint this and draw on or paint other details on and have it just flat like that, but I've got some other bits of plastic that I'm going to stick on from my bits box. I have this here. This is cut from the casing of one of those simple wall wart plug-in power supplies. That's going to break up the shape a bit. And then on the roof I've just got some lids from various cans and tubes. And finally, I have a doorway arch that I've scratch built. I've used plasticard for the sides and the door inside. And the top part here is from a piece of plastic pipe. Now for this, I want it to be mounted flush, and it's going to be slightly indented into the building. So that means I'm going to have to cut a hole. And to mark out where I'm going to cut the hole, I place a pencil on the arch and I can draw it round, and as you can see there's now a pencil line left which lines up with the shape of the arch. So here's the assembled building. I used a mix of super glue and hot melt glue to affix the door arch, this element here at the side, and the lids on the roof. And you'll see I've also added some extra details to the side here, just a panel of cardboard with some bits and pieces glued to it. I've glued some bits onto the top of this lid here and onto what was the old wall wart power supply. I've put some more pieces here. A lot of these are just electronic components I had lying around spare, but you can use pretty much anything just to add a little bit of detail to the surface. And now this is ready to be painted. And here we have the completed and painted building. I've used textured paint for most of this to give it a sort of sandstone appearance. And then the sort of technological machinery bits I've picked out in lead belcher with some Agrax Earthshade on to make it look like they've been exposed to the elements. And then just as a contrast, I painted the door in a plain red. Again, I've given it an Agrax Earthshade wash. So this building is now ready for use on a battlefield. The next building I'll be working on is another quite simple one, and I'll be using this CD spindle as the basis for it. But to make the shape a bit more interesting, I will also be adding on parts from one of my dummy CCTV cameras. Here's the basic structure of this second building. I've taken the fake CCTV camera and removed most of the insides. I've secured the actual dome piece with some hot melt glue. I've added a couple of strips of cardboard to the outside to break up the smooth outline, and I'll be adding some further details to that. And then for the spindle itself, I've cut a hole where I'm going to put a doorway, which I built from plastic card like the first building. This time it's going to be recessed inside, so I will have to trim away this bit of plastic here from the base of the spindle. This hole was easier to cut than it was on the food container, because unlike the food containers, these spindles do have a vertical outside wall instead of a tapering one. So now I just need to add a few more details and glue all of this together. So here is the assembled building, and if I just turn it around, you'll be able to see that I didn't actually add that many extra details to it. I put some little bits of plastic and such in around the base of the dome where I hadn't already covered it with cardboard, and to break up the flat wall of the CD spindle, I just used a couple of bits of wooden batten to put on some buttresses. The door has been glued into place, made sure that the hole fit correctly, and then the dome and the base of the spindle are all glued together, and this is now ready to be painted. And here is the finished building. I've used the same colour scheme as I did on the first one. I'm going to be doing that throughout to sort of keep them consistent, build a nice little settlement. So I've used Games Workshop paints here for these metallic pieces and also for the door and the control panel, but the main structure is covered in a cheaper textured paint to give it a sort of sandy feel to it. And that is the second building complete, so I'm now ready to move on to the third. For this next building, I'm going back to the food storage containers, and I'm going to be using not one but two different sizes of the more oblong shaped ones. You can see they're not quite square, they are sort of rounded at the sides, and the reason I'm going to be combining two of them is because I don't want to have a uniform cross-section size all the way along the building. So I'll be cutting them in half down the middle and then mating a smaller half to a larger half, obviously with a vertical plate in the middle, to have a wider section than having it narrow towards the other end. I've cut the two containers in half, and now I'm going to match a half from the large container with one with the smaller container, as you can see here. And you'll also notice that again I've sanded the surfaces to give them a bit of a rough finish for paint to adhere to better. And I'm going to connect them like this with a sheet of plastic card covering the open end of the larger container half, and then I can just glue the smaller container half to it. And to stick the containers to the sheet of plastic card, I've used some bits of wooden batten which I've super glued to both the container half and the plastic card plate, and then I've gone round with a hot melt glue gun just to reinforce the join as much as I can. And now obviously I will repeat that with the other two pieces, and then this is ready to be detailed. Here are the two detailed buildings, and I've used the usual materials of plastic card, cardboard, balsa wood and a few electronic components to create the details on these. I've also used a drinking straw for an external pipe on the roof, and this interesting structure here comes from the top of a detergent bottle. And both of these are almost identical. The only difference is the cardboard plate on this end. I've got a number 1 and a number 2, and that is simply so I can differentiate between the two buildings if I have to once I've painted them. And here we have the two finished buildings, fully painted in the same colour scheme I've used for the previous ones, so that they all match on the tabletop. And with these done, I am now ready to move on to another design. For this next building, I'm going to be combining several major parts again to build the basic structure, and I'm going to be using one of these smaller, roughly oblong shaped food containers. Then I'm going to be merging that with one of the CD spindles, one of the taller ones, and I will also be putting on top of that a dome from another of these fake CCTV cameras. So that I can fit the pieces together, you can see here that I've cut a large segment out of one corner of the roughly rectangular shaped container, and it's a little bit wider at the bottom because that now means I can just fit the CD spindle in like that, and then I will place that section of the fake CCTV camera on top, and this will give me my basic structure that now I can proceed to adding details to. And here is the assembled and detailed building using the usual mix of various spare parts and balsa wood. I've also used some plastic packaging here from some electronic sensors which I had access to through work. And of course this is now ready to be painted. And here is the painted and finished building, and this is where I'm going to leave this video for today. There are still obviously some containers I showed at the start of the video I haven't covered yet. With any luck I will get the opportunity to use those in a future video, but in the meantime I will end with a shot of my little scratch built settlement using plastic storage containers laid out on a battlefield ready to use. Thanks for watching. Bye.